significant evolution is happening in how cloud services handle data residency, sovereignty and regulatory compliance. For the UK and EU, this update impacts how your organisation manages personal and support data in the cloud. I'm Chris, a consultant at Synextra, and in this video we'll be looking at Microsoft's EU Data Boundary Initiative. The EU Data Boundary, or EUDB, is Microsoft's commitment to ensure that personal data of EU and EFTA-based customers is both stored and processed entirely within Europe. That includes not just primary customer data, but also metadata, telemetry and customer support interactions. It applies to Microsoft 365, Azure, Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This initiative was developed in direct response to the increasing demand for data localization, GDPR compliance and operational transparency across public sector and enterprise clients in Europe. So we're talking about industries such as financial services, healthcare, legal and professional services, to name a few. The EUDB spans Microsoft's data center regions in the EU and the EFTA, including countries like Germany, the Netherlands, Ireland and France. The initiative does not change service capabilities or pricing, but restructures the data flow model so that key personal data types never leave the region unless explicitly configured otherwise. The rollout was completed in 3 distinct phases. Phase 1, this completed in January 2023 and covered core customer data. That includes files stored in SharePoint Online, Exchange mailboxes, Teams chats, OneDrive content and databases hosted in Azure, such as SQL Database and Cosmos DB. These are all now resident in EU or EFTA data centers by default, assuming EU region service configuration. Phase 2, this completed in January 2024 and extended the initiative with pseudonymized personal data such as diagnostic logs, telemetry signals and crash dumps generated by apps like Office, Azure Resource Manager and Dynamics. These background systems often transfer data to Microsoft global engineering teams. This phase changed that model by localizing even back-end diagnostics. Phase 3, this completed in February 2025 and encompassed Microsoft support and consulting data such as case notes, escalation logs and any diagnostic files uploaded for troubleshooting. Now, unless there's a specific legal basis or override, this data remains strictly in the EU. With all 3 phases now live, Microsoft has created a complete data boundary for its major cloud services in Europe. But why does this matter for UK-based organisations? Well, if you're using Microsoft Cloud Services to serve EU customers, or if your teams are collaborating across UK and EU jurisdictions, your data footprint may be crossing borders without you realising it. EUDB helps reduce regulatory complexity and builds a clean, region-bound data architecture. Microsoft also provides full transparency on how data is handled through its EU Data Boundary Trust Portal. You can access flow diagrams, residency maps, and lists of services currently in scope. These are key assets when conducting GDPR DPIAs, audits, or responding to regulatory queries. From a cloud engineering perspective, the EU Data Boundary brings tangible changes to how we design and operate Microsoft Cloud environments. Region-aware deployment strategies. You must ensure resources are provisioned only in EU-compliant regions. For example, avoid defaulting to global or multi-geo resource groups when deploying Azure functions, storage accounts, or PaaS components. Data flow segregation. System architecture should explicitly separate EU workloads from UK or global ones. This includes routing telemetry to log analytics workspaces hosted in EU regions and configuring diagnostic settings accordingly. Access and identity controls. Conditional access, role-based access control and privileged identity management policies need to enforce EU-only administrative access to sensitive workloads, including support diagnostic sessions. Monitoring and observability. Ensure tools like Azure Monitor, Defender for Cloud, and Microsoft Sentinel are region-scoped and integrated with EU-hosted data syncs. Avoid configurations that export metrics or logs to non-EU analytics or SIEM tools by default. Using tools like Microsoft 365 Compliance Center and Azure Policy, you can validate tenant location, restrict resource deployments to EU-only regions, and audit access to telemetry or support data. As of June 2025, Microsoft introduced the Data Boundary Guardian role, a mandatory EU-based approval layer for any exceptional access to data from outside the boundary. This adds another layer of oversight and trust, particularly for organisations concerned about foreign surveillance or extraterritorial data access. In summary, Microsoft's EU data boundary is now fully implemented across all phases. It provides local residency for customer, telemetry and support data, full transparency in documentation, stronger GDPR alignment for UK-based organisations operating in the EU. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more top-class cloud-based content.